Welcome to Second Take, the show that takes a look at the issues behind the news. Frameworks have been put in place to allow companies that use electricity intensively to apply for an incentivized tariff. Terence joins me to discuss the framework and whether there is likely to be much uptake. Hi Terence.
Hi Chanel.
Negotiated pricing agreements have been available for some time. What is different about these frameworks?
Yes, as you say, I mean, it was a very controversial thing. You must remember those aluminium smelters in South Africa and Mozambique had a negotiated pricing settlement with Eskom, and those were very controversial when we started to have power cuts. And then more recently, we've had those companies that closed as a result of the sustained tariff hikes. We've had real tariff hikes of over 500% over the last 13 years or so. And we saw companies that were very energy intensive, electricity intensive, closing. And there were some applications to the National Energy Regulator of South Africa, NERSA, for negotiated pricing settlements. These were very short term, and the most high profile was the silicon smelters, which got a very short term incentivized price. The difference was that now the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy has put out two frameworks. One framework is for companies that have shut capacity really, and they're looking to restart, and it's a more shorter term, between 3 and 5 years for a negotiated pricing agreement. And the second framework is a longer term one, really for strategic large industries that we're wanting to sustain as a strategic sectors in South Africa, are between 6 and 10 years. So these frameworks are now in place. They are new. They were published towards the end of last year, and that gives industry some ability to approach Eskom, because Eskom and the company need to approach the regulator jointly to try and get a different tariff arrangement to sustain these businesses, or to allow for new electricity intensive operations to open.
How can a company qualify for such a tariff, and is the relief material?
You know, we don't have very good visibility of what the tariff itself is going to look like. That doesn't actually appear in the framework. What the framework tells you is what sort of companies would qualify and how you go about qualifying. So it has to be a very material part of your business. Electricity has to be a major input into the production of your product. You have to be a certain type of consumer of electricity, so you're almost consuming 24/7, sort of a baseload type operation. And you also have to approach this in a way that is not deleterious to either Eskom or the municipal supplier. So you have to approach it together, and it has to be in a way that Eskom and the municipal supplier is not left worse off. So there are a number of criteria, but really it's large mining and industrial enterprises, generally mineral processing enterprises that use a lot of electricity. Companies, for instance, we know that the distress and the migration of the ferrochrome industry away from South Africa to China over the last decade, a result of high tariffs, to show that how these high tariffs are not sustainable for the business, and that you have to get a different deal in order to operate at a higher level of production, or not to shut production.
Can these NPAs help, and is there likely to be a lot of interest from the industry?
Yes, I think they're not the silver bullet to sustain industrial demand in South Africa. You know, industrial demand, if you just look at Eskom sales have flatlined. They've declined massively during the COVID year, but a large portion of those sales decline is coming from the industrial users, and that's very, very bad for Eskom. One, because Eskom, those are good payers. Generally, you know, the payers that Eskom is getting left with, the residential, residential payers, you can see many municipalities are battling to get the revenue back from consumers, and we're seeing a lot of debt owed to Eskom. So they want industrial customers, business customers that are generally do pay for the electricity. The other thing is it's cheaper to supply a lot of these customers. They supply them at high voltage. It's direct sales, and these customers, where there is some fat in the system, is that these customers actually subsidize the residential customer. So there is a way of reducing the tariff, so taking out those cross subsidies and not being negative to either the municipality or mostly to Eskom. And already Eskom CEO Andre de Ruyter has made it clear that he is very much in favour of supporting industrial customers, these baseload customers. These are also customers where you can interrupt their load, and that during a load, when you're power short as we are at the moment, that ability to interrupt load like they do at the aluminium smelters is a very big tool in the system operator's armory to try and prevent load shedding as much as possible. So there will be interest in this. I think it can help. We do need to look at sustaining certain vulnerable industries that are big foreign exchange earners, have maybe not direct jobs, but have multiplied jobs that are very important for South Africa, but also do have many direct jobs. So those are important industries, and at least now we do have a framework that Eskom and the company itself can approach NERSA with. And already the energy intensive user group has said maybe it's, as I say, not the silver bullet, it doesn't solve all our problems because we've got a seriously fast rising tariff trajectory, and yet Eskom saying this is still below cost reflective levels. But and we need to look at the tariff structure, I suppose, more specifically and more generally as to how it's going to be sustainable for these sort of electricity intensive businesses. But I think as a short-term or medium-term measure, and to sustain certain industries and to also maybe recapture some of those markets that we've lost, such as ferrochrome, it could be an important tool. And it seems like there is appetite, and NERSA has confirmed that the first application is before it. They haven't named who it is because they're still going through internal processes. But I think it won't be long before we know who that is, and I don't think it'll be long before there'll be other applications before NERSA.
Thank you. That's the Second Take show for this week. Thank you for watching, and join us again next time for more news analysis. Also, don't forget to listen to the audio version of our Engineering News Daily email newsletter.